Alright, y'all, let's launch the new year 2022 with a spoiler review of the new Scream. So, everyone that I've been talking to or been acquaintances with, they always either reference this movie as Scream 5 or Scream 2022. And for the sake of me making it less confusing for you all, we are going just to keep it as Scream 5. So, if you come at me in the comments about, no, this is Scream 2022 or the titlement of it, just please, just for the sake, let's just call it for what is making it less confusing. It's a Scream 5 movie. If you're new to my channel here, we are a movie review rankings list of horror and thriller movies. Talking about all types of horror stuff too, not just movies, maybe some collectibles, travels in the future, etc. So if you're hearing along in the trip with me, please buckle up because there's going to be a lot of things. Could be messy, could be fun, could be comical, you name it. I want to make a statement though too that I'm not a movie critic by all means. I don't get paid to do this. I'm not like a professional who went to school, like film school or anything like that. This is just me as a person, share my thoughts and ideas and feelings of each horror thriller movie that I particularly watch, but I do invite all types of comments. So if you even disagree with me in my review or my thoughts, that's totally fine. I always like to see the disagreements and see where people have a different perspective or view of a movie. So please, all means, just don't be shy. I won't get mad. I will get mad though if it starts getting into more derogatory or just trying to put me or cut me down or cut other people down. That's where I'm going to put a boundary there. But again, you can disagree with me. It's a safe space here to disagree. I want this spoiler review to spoil any parts of your experience for this movie if you haven't watched it yet. This is an alert. This is your warning. I don't like to spoil things for people, so again, alert warning. And also too, I want to give out this resource and reference for everyone who may be sensitive to some particular graphics or elements within this movie. I use the doesthedogdie.com. Now that one does spoil a lot of details in there, but if you need to have the spoilers and just to be prepared for your emotions for your first watch of this movie, I definitely highly recommend because it'll give you all the rundown of all the possibilities what could trigger a person in this type of movie. So please use it, doesthedogdie.com. Highly recommend that one. I use it sometimes for new movies as well. I used it, for example, for the movie Martyrs in 2008, and it helped me actually be prepared emotionally what to expect. So yeah, it really does help. And I'm also a person that's very sensitive to particular elements in horror too, and yeah, I need that kind of resource as well. But appropriate that we start with a synopsis of this movie just to give you an idea what we're going to be talking about and what this movie is going to be about. The synopsis says we return back to this quiet town of Woodsboro after 25 years of the previous killings, and the killings have arrived again. The original brutal Ghostface returns, and then we eventually get to see the legacy characters Sidney Prescott, Gale Weathers, and Dewey return to Woodsboro and help this new group of teens fight Ghostface and discover and investigate who is the killer or killers. We get Sam Carpenter, who is a person that moved out of Woodsboro and lives, didn't really say, but obviously she lives pretty far outside of it, and she left for particular reasons, which I will definitely get into that. And then we have Richie, her boyfriend that she becomes acquaintance with in the outside of this town. They only been dating for about 6 months. And then we get Tara, her younger sister, who is one of the young teens that's still in high school in Woodsboro. And then we get some of her friends in here too. We get Mindy and Chad, who are twins, and they are the niece and nephew of Randy. And then we have Wes Hicks, who is the son of Lieutenant Deputy Hicks, but she is now Sheriff Hicks. If you don't know who Judy Hicks is, she's a character from Scream 4. And then we also get Liv, who is Chad's girlfriend. Pretty much that's what we know much about her in that sense. And then we get Amber, who is best friends with Tara, and she's very protective of Tara in the sense that Tara had some issues, and so does Sam, and I'll dive into that too. And then I feel like I'm missing someone else besides Amber. I think that's it, but if I missed someone, call me out in the comments. And then, of course, we get our legacy characters. Like I said, we get Sidney Prescott in this, we get Gale Weathers, and then we get Dewey. A lot of my highlights of this movie, I'm going to dive into the good stuff because I feel like I have a lot more good than I do bad. So let's just get it out of the table. Like I was saying earlier of explaining about Sam and Tara's like past and current present time is Sam, we find out, kind of ditches town once she finds like a dirty secret that her mom has kept from her and Tara. And she did this whole leaving out of town because she is trying to protect Tara. Protect her because this particular secret has made Sam feel like she did not want to drag Tara into the mess of things, and also too felt like this secret caused Tara and Sam's father to leave town and kind of abandon the family, and Sam blames herself for it. So again, she was trying not to have Tara just know this secret. So probably some of you are wondering, what is this secret? Which this particular detail was a good surprise because I was not predicting it before watching this movie, and I somewhat liked the detail of it, but somewhat not. This one kind of goes in like both back and forth for me of like I liked it but I didn't like it. But we find out that Sam is actually the daughter of Billy. We find out that from Sam, she says that she snuck into the attic of their home when she was a younger teen, like about 5 years ago. And her mom has written these diaries of, I guess, since like high school. And her mom did like a diary entry about her and Billy hooked up during high school. So this must have been the time where Billy was getting some action in high school, since Sidney Prescott was not given it so easily or anything. I like that storytelling detail in there. It just makes a lot of sense, and it also is very creative and thoughtful in that way. So yeah, we find out that she finds out she is the daughter of Billy. And then that's why she kept everything from Tara and kept it a secret for years and years and years. And then we also kind of see Tara having these like hallucinations or seeing things, like she sees Billy. And what they did to Skeet in that, or in those scenes, was well done. I liked it for the sense that it was good to kind of like be surprised in that way, and it some moments made sense, like for him to be present and for her to be seeing him. But there's other times I just felt like it did not belong. But again, I'll go into that once I talk about like my not so highlights of it. So I liked that. I liked how they introduced him back into it. The de-aging in there wasn't like something I was not mad about either. They did the best they can. I think they could have done a little bit better, but overall it was well done, and I just like to see him back in that way. I just remembered another new character that came back. There is this character. He was kind of like a throwaway character is what I call him. He was kind of like the bad boy in the group that are causing like the group a little bit of stress. Just not too much stress. It's just, of course, like teenage drama stuff. But we find out that he is the nephew of Stu. But it just felt like, again, he was just a throwaway character because we see that he actually ends up getting killed by Ghostface. But I think that detail in there is, again, a great way of leading to a potential sequel for this one, because now we know that Stu has a sister. So maybe his sister will be around in the next movie as a Ghostface, or maybe Stu and his sister. Who knows? I'm just saying. It just, thoughts and ideas are coming around. But yeah, I really liked some parts of, again, the Billy Loomis coming around. I enjoy how this franchise isn't like Halloween or Friday the 13th or any other kind of like typical horror franchise that we've received and have in our hands. But what's unique about this one particularly is the element of us being surprised. Like, we're always in a mystery, or we're always questioning every character, and it kind of feels like Clue, but just a horror version of Clue. And I think that just helps me get even more entertained by just trying to figure out this puzzle. And once you do figure out the puzzle, it's actually fun to revisit it and just trying to make all these other connections and other ideas come together in the final product that you discovered or you just have witnessed that came into phase. So it's really, really good to just go into that and have that kind of experience. I like how Scream did not follow any set of rules particularly. There was a monologue in there by Mindy explaining in the meta form of the rules of horror films. And she described this horror film as like a legacy requel. And to me, in that description or that monologue again, I didn't understand really the rules per se. It just didn't feel like there was really any set of rules. And I thought that was trying to set it apart or different from what we've already seen in the other entries. And I was kind of indifferent at first about how I was feeling about it, but honestly, I think I felt pretty satisfied with that because it just brought something different in the flow of this kind of movie. And at the same time too, I would have to say that it led to having us more ideas of potential killers on here too, and it made us always question and guess, and didn't like spoon feed us of like, oh, this is the killer, or this is an idea of the killer, or this person cannot obviously be the killer. So I really enjoyed that in that way. But can we also talk about the casting of this movie? Like, the casting always is in this franchise is fantastic in my opinion. I don't think there's been one movie entry in this franchise where I have complained about the casting, because they do such a great job. And I know that the first 4 movies, Wes Craven had like some influence and partake in picking the cast. And this didn't have Wes Craven at all in it. They did still such a great job with it, and I actually fell more in love with the new batch of characters that we got in this one than what we got in Scream 4. And that's something I think we should take a lot of appreciation into, because they really had to handle this like delicately and everything that they're adding into this. So that's pretty hard to do in my opinion, for adding in a cast that we can all fall in love with. It's something that too, that's a franchise that is very iconic, and we all very hard to please, especially us Scream fans and horror fans in general too. So I have to give them an A+ on that. And what we know about the Scream movies is that they are known to be very meta, and also kind of have this like black comedy horror elements to it. And this one, I didn't feel like it had a lot of horror or comical moments like what we've seen in some other installments. For example, like Scream 3 and Scream 4, I felt like we got a lot of comical moments within the characters, or the new characters, I should say, the old legacy characters and the newer characters. For example, we always have Gale Weathers coming up with like a lot of these fun and sassy one-liner moments, and then we also get introduced like a character that's pretty for comic relief too. The first person I think of is Jennifer from Scream 3. Loved her. I wish if we could resurrect a character, I would resurrect her just to have more moments of her, but I digress. Also too, this movie's gore, like the effects of it and the brutality of it, I really enjoyed it. So hear me out. In Scream 4, I feel like they stepped it up. That was the movie that really took it up the next level of gore. And within that movie, I didn't know how I felt about it. And that was the first, or actually, no, that was the second Scream movie I watched in theaters. And the gore in there, I was just like, whoa, I'm seeing some like guts now. I'm seeing some very like more intense like killings or injuries in there. And now I feel like it's a good thing that they're stepping it up, because we're kind of getting like the same formula a little bit from like the first 3 entries with how the kills are, and we needed to have something a little more intense, because I feel like as the time and generations coming along and changing, the ways of practices need to change too, so even like the killings themselves. So in Scream 5, I thought maybe it's kind of like the same level of the gore, but the killings, a lot of them were very surprising to me. I was not expecting Sheriff Hicks, Judy Hicks, being killed off the way she did, especially in broad daylight and just like surprise attacked with being killed in front of her house. That was just like, okay, like Ghostface is very bold in that way, because I don't think we really got a lot of like daytime out in the open killings from Ghostface. Ghostface in the other entries. So that was kind of just really, really nice. And we get to see like pretty much how each person gets killed off here. Like Wes, like the knife through the throat, like that was wow. I was impressed, but then also again like shocked with how brutal and dark that was. And a lot of these characters too got stabbed a lot, so I was actually kind of surprised with some of these characters surviving with how much I would say trauma they experienced, like physical trauma. For example, like Tara, I was kind of surprised, but I think they planned on keeping her, of course, alive just to draw back in Sam. But like Chad, one of the twins, he got stabbed like 7 times, and where he got stabbed at, I'm just again very surprised. And then how long he like laid out there bleeding, like how did he not die? But again, all of it was just great in that sense, and I have to give him like pretty high scoring in that way too. And the last like biggest highlight that I enjoyed about this movie was all the nostalgia within this film, and also to add in with the nostalgia is the respect and the how do I want to say it, tributes for Wes Craven as well. Like, let's talk about the tributes for Wes Craven, just to talk about it and give him respect here, because he's one of my favorite directors of all times. I just love his visual and eye for a horror movie. So I liked how they have a character named Wes, and I was very upset with the fact that they killed him off, not so quickly, but kind of still early on. So I was like thinking like, okay, they just like treat this character Wes as like a throwaway character, and it's a little upset and peeved by it. But if you pay attention to the detail of the massacre party, always they're keeping up with that same formula of Scream, but it's cool. Where the twins and Amber, and I think it's Amber's home. Yeah, it's Amber's home, where we find out too that it's actually originally Stu's home. Love that. We're going to go into that here soon. In that party, you see like a banner that says like tribute to Wes, like we'll miss you, Wes. So I think just that subtle detail, they have to kill off Wes in order to like show that banner is just shown an extra step of appreciation for Wes Craven, and I love it. And at the end of the movie too, we see like a credit come up and it says this is for Wes. You can tell and feel the love that the team in this Scream movie just had for Wes Craven, and definitely appreciate that and give them all the respect, and they did such a great job. More on the nostalgia piece though. Give you a few details of how the writers and directors and producers did on paying attention to details with all the other installment franchises, because I will say you don't really need to see part 2 and part 3. But if you want to, go ahead. If you want to do your homework and be like an overachiever student in that way. But if you don't and you still want to follow through and catch like the Easter eggs in here, I would say just watch the original Scream from 1996 and Scream 4. That's going to be most helpful. So a lot of the Easter eggs that I paid attention to and saw was, one, I saw Dewey go. I guess I should explain. So Dewey and Gale are no longer together, and Dewey's still in Woodsboro and Gale's in New York. Long story short, Dewey actually goes to New York for a little bit to live with Gale, but he moves out or goes back to Woodsboro because he just knows that he has this tie to Woodsboro, and Gale just stayed behind in New York. So he ends up like walking out of the relationship. But anyway, we see in him and like he's no longer the sheriff here. He's kind of like having a sad life, and I enjoyed that part of writing for Dewey because not everything has to be like sunshine and rainbows, and it's great like character development too. But within his trailer, we see a box of ashes, which is Tatum's, and you can see Tatum's name on the box. So love that subtle detail in there. We also see Kirby from Scream 4 getting interviewed about her 1 year anniversary of the killings that occurred within Scream 4, and now it's present time Scream 5. Pay attention to that next time you watch it. Another Easter egg that I noticed or caught was Stu's nephew. I can't remember his name, I'm so sorry. But when he's out in the parking lot, and this is his like death scene, he's going to the car, which plays I call it the Scream theme song. So I think it's called The Red Light Hand, by Nick Cavus, I think. I loved that. It just is calling back to the original. They did a lot of that, and my favorite nostalgic moment was seeing the iconic Scream house, which is Stu's house, and that just gave me chills when they revealed like the zoom in and zoom in out of like we're in this house type of thing. And I liked it, loved it a lot. So there's a lot of other Easter eggs within this movie. If you know any others that I have not mentioned, just tell me down in the comments, because maybe I need to watch this for a second, third, or fourth time, just to catch on to those Easter eggs and give me an excuse to watch it so many times. I'm going to go into what I'm on the fence about, is what I call it. The things I just did not really care for and just feel indifferent about. Going back to what I was saying earlier with Billy Loomis being added into this movie in the way he did or was, I just really did not care. I was so confused about his character involvement in here, because we all know he was pretty much the person that started the influencing of all these killings in a way. I'll call it what it is, him or Roman, whatever, too. But I felt like they're trying to paint this picture where he's trying to groom Sam into being a killer, but then it was like coming off too like he's trying to say like, I'm so proud of you, of just like figuring out the mystery and killing and taking the next step and killing the killer. Like it was, I don't know, I was just so confused by that, and I just didn't understand why we're adding in so much of like our final girls having like hallucinations or seeing people. Granted, I like, again, how they're still keeping on with the theme, because we saw that in Scream 3 with Sydney seeing her mom and having those visions or seeing things, whatever. But I can understand that for Sydney, because she's having like, PTSD and stressful hallucinations coming along, or flashbacks. Of course, I can justify making sense of that. But for Sam, I don't understand it. I don't get it yet. That's one of the biggest things in the writing that just really is nitpicking me like a scab, like you're picking out a scab. And I think that actually hurt not a big chunk of the scoring for me here, but it just kind of just didn't feel like it fit in, and it felt like disjointed in a way. Also, too, another influencing of my lowering of score was the legacy characters kind of taking a backseat in this movie. I mean, I liked Dewey's involvement because it felt like he was starting to mesh into the new group of teens very well, and I loved his moments, especially some comical moments, of course, and it still felt like this is Dewey within a group. This is just, a different generation or a different stage of life of Dewey, of course. But I just did not care for how much we didn't get of Sydney and Gale. Like, I just felt like they were required to be in there because this is another Scream movie. We didn't get enough explaining of their backstories or what's kind of going on fully within their present life. Like, I know Gale is now pretty much a host of her own show, it looks like, and that's cool, but I guess I want to know a little bit more of her life. And I mean, I guess we did get enough backstory between her and Dewey of why they broke up, which, again, like I said, he just ended up walking out and didn't really explain to her why he walked out until the moments where they're back in Woodsboro. I also did not care for them not explaining Sydney Prescott in a way further in detail. Like, we see Sydney running with a stroller, so I'm going to guess that she's a mom of a small child maybe, but again, we just don't know. And I caught her husband's name, which she said Mark. And again, if you have seen all the horror movies, and maybe you should watch Scream 3 for this detail, but again, it's not confirmed fully in this Scream 5. But maybe it's Mark Kincaid, the detective in Scream 3 that helped Sydney Prescott, who's also Patrick Dempsey's character. So I don't know, I just wish they went into explaining that more for them, gave them a little bit more respect, but at the same time, I get it, they're trying to help us build emotional ties for these new characters that were being introduced and also following through within the franchise and giving them some room. And maybe, and this is me just doing a lot of assuming, maybe they'll get into the next entry with the franchise and explain more about Gale and Sydney Prescott's backstories, or especially Sydney's. I would want to know more in that sense. Does she only have one child, and the child is this very small child, or does she have multiple children? What's going on? I don't know. I just want to know. And is it Mark Kincaid that she's married to? I just want to know. I think I need to rewind. Yeah, I'm going to have to rewind a little bit on a detail too that I feel like I'm very wishy-washy about. So this is a big spoiler here of a detail, but we actually get a death of one of the legacy characters, which I predicted this is going to happen before watching this, was going to be, it's going to be Dewey. I didn't know how I felt about his death, honestly, because I felt like maybe they could have went the next step in killing either between Sydney or Gale, which honestly I felt like maybe they could have done Gale and just kept Sydney and Dewey. I kind of would rather see their dynamic duo a little bit more, just because I feel like Dewey is able to, now what we've seen in this entry, is figure out and be more hyper aware of details of potential killers. And the reason why I say that is because in Scream 5, when he meets Sam and Richie, he kind of goes through the list with Sam of all these potential killers. Okay, does Tara have a best friend? And does this best friend seem this way, that way, da 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 da? And then he calls Sam out and says, okay, well, how long have you known your boyfriend here? 6 months? Okay, has he been very obsessive about asking about Woodsboro and knowing about your family history, or knows about your family history, etc., etc. So I just felt like maybe he would have been more useful in the future entries, I guess, than Gale, but who knows? Maybe, I don't know. That's just my opinion, because I like Dewey a little bit more than Gale, in my opinion, because I feel like Gale always just gets lucky in a way and just plays possum in some entries that we've seen, and that's kind of like gave her an edge, where at times we've seen Dewey like actually like use his thinking process and brain and get out of sticky situations, but he was also too probably distracted by Gale, so maybe he wouldn't be the best to carry on into it, because Gale's death would probably really distract him. Who knows? But that's where I just was kind of on the fence with his death in that movie. But I loved his death, though, at the same time, because how they did it was so good. With the whole, like, taking one knife to the front and one knife in the back and just, like, slicing them up, and then giving, like, that scene a little bit much of a dramatic, longer scene where we have Ghostface just standing over him in that shot. That was, like, great. But I'm going to go back to something I'm very nitpicky about. We find out that the two Ghostface killers are Richie and Amber, okay? And we find out that Amber was the one that actually ends up killing Dewey, because when she's like having an altercation or a fight scene with Gale, she admits that she feels honored that she gets to kill Gale after she just like killed a legacy character, Dewey. And in this moment, this is where I'm getting a little bit nitpicky, but I was like discussing this with my husband, and we both like were talking about this as like, how can someone like Amber, her size, okay, be able to do that to a fully grown man, and also to Bone? Like, if you look at her, I don't think she doesn't have the strength to do that. I'm just going to assume out loud, and call me a bigot or whatever in that sense, but I'm just going to look at her, and does that make sense? And also, to me, like how Ghostface looked in that movie, or in that scene particularly, was like tall, like way taller than what we're seeing with Amber. So if it was Richie, that would make sense. I could possibly see that, but Richie, obviously it couldn't be Richie because he is within that chase scene in the hospital where Dewey dies. So it's confirmed that it's Amber. So I don't know, like I feel like maybe the writers could be a little bit better in those details. That's just me being nitpicky, but that's how my brain works, you all. Let's just go into my overall thoughts though. Is this franchise revolutionary? No, it's not revolutionary at all. And the reason why I say it's not revolutionary is because the whole idea, what they're trying to follow with the formula for this installment to match with the other ones, is talking about the influence of the fans. So what I mean by this is we find out why Richie and Amber are killing people is because they're so upset with all the Stab movies that are in the entry. So from Stab 5 to Stab 8 has really changed and ruined things, and has not kept like the same formula what they've seen in Stab 1 through 4. And so it just influenced them to have the writers and the Hollywood people to go back to the roots of the original Scream, but create a legacy horror. So how meta is that? Again, nothing new. That's what I mean as revolutionary in that way. I think that's a strength that it has, is keeping up with the formula with the Scream movies in that way. So that's honestly a positive. And I think that positive honestly really influenced the level of entertainment that I have for this movie, and the experience that I got from this movie for a first watch and within the movie theater. It made me just say, like, this is like a movie that is worth watching in the theaters. This is a movie that's worth adding into a Blu-ray DVD collection of mine. So I'm gonna definitely give it high kudos for that, of just staying and sticking with the formula of Scream, maybe adding some nostalgic pieces, like I said, into it, but slowly adding in like the overall new pieces to it, but still paying respect to the original, or what the original writer and director Wes Craven was creating here. Let's talk about the ratings of this. So IMDb rating, the average so far was 7.7 out of 10. And to me, I'm kind of a little shook about that because I feel like that's a little low, just a little bit lower than I was expecting it to be. But that's an opinion. And Rotten Tomatoes was 76% fresh, and surprised that by that score in a good way, surprised, because quite honestly, Rotten Tomatoes is pretty snobby with horror films, especially. Unless it's an elevated like horror movie, it's more likely going to get a high score with Rotten Tomatoes. And this one's not an elevated horror by all means. So for a Rotten Tomatoes score, that's a good high surprise score for Rotten Tomatoes. So got a shocking surprise in a bad way and one in a good way so far. And the Google users, a lot of the people out of 5 stars have given it a 3.8, which I feel like that's actually very fair and good scoring right there too, and true. So my overall score for this one is an 8.5 out of 10. I will say that what influenced my score overall for it to be so high, again, is the nostalgic pieces to this, and also how it does such a great job with paying tribute to all the installments and Wes Craven, and just having me fall actually in love with a lot of these new characters like Tara, for example, which, by the way, I wish we got more of Tara than we did with Sam, because I feel like Tara was way more interesting as a final girl than Sam, but that's just me. Maybe again in the new future installment, if they carry on with this, maybe we'll get more screen time with Tara. Who knows? Or maybe we'll fall more in love with Sam further in the future. Who knows? What hurt the score of my rating for this movie is, again, the Billy Loomis detail. I'm just going to give it some points down on that, and the lack of legacy character time that we got into this movie. It just felt like they were, again, just needed to be in there. It was forced more than actually genuine and authentic way of them coming into the story of this entry. And also, I'm going to have to say, too, it just felt like there was too many people surviving in this movie. I guess I should have talked about that earlier. Was we actually get we get Mindy and Chad, the twins, surviving, and Tara and Sam surviving, and Gail and Sydney surviving. Again, to me, I was like, okay, I don't know, maybe one of the twins out of the two could at least died, and I get like why they're keeping Tara and Sam, because they're like the new Gail and Sydney, and we have our Gail and Sydney legacy characters too. But like the twins, I was just like, okay, like why do we need to have both of them alive? But I guess they're both the Randys, but maybe just kept Mindy. I don't know, because Mindy is honestly my overall favorite character out of all the new characters. She's such a stud. Just gonna put that out there. And I enjoy her a lot, and that's actually a big thing to carry as an influence of a character too, because we all fell in love with Randy from the original Scream, and then she's pretty much replacing Randy in the new generation, and I think she did such a great job, so love her in that. That's my overall score of Scream 5. And please tell me down below in the comments what you think about this movie. Do you agree or disagree with some things I said? What are some things I did not mention that we should discuss and call attention to? Also, too, I'll give you my prediction of a possible installment that they may or could do. Is I feel like if they want to give the legacy characters more respect, it'd be cool to see Sydney getting harassed or stalked or like all the whatever descriptors you want to use by the new Ghostface. And the new Ghostface would have Stu involved, because I think Wes Craven in an interview confirmed that Stu is actually still alive. Correct me if I'm wrong, because I feel like it was just like a very old interview that he had about one of the Scream movies coming out, and he confirmed I swear he confirmed that Stu is actually still alive. So it'd be cool to see Stu come back and maybe orchestrate a new Ghostface or Ghostface people. Or he be one of the Ghostface, and then one of the new characters that were introduced in the new entry is a Ghostface, whatever. Harass and stalk Sydney and her family, and then all these like characters come together again, and maybe go out of Woodsboro this time around. Don't need to stay within Woodsboro. We kind of got that in Scream 3, which I actually like that detail of Scream 3 is it wasn't in Woodsboro. It's actually nice to get it outside of Woodsboro for once. Oh, we also got that too in Scream 2. We didn't get it in Woodsboro and got in Sydney's like college. But again, it was great to have a change of environment and scenery. So maybe they can do that in the next installment with her new home and all, because nowhere is safe. That's where I want to have that flow going, that energy, those vibes. But yeah, that's just my prediction of an idea of what they could do in that sense. And also I want to hear your all's ideas or predictions as well of what they could do further with this franchise as well. But yeah, that's my overall thoughts. I will try to post this as soon as possible. I'm going to actually try to post this on January 17th. Yes, the Monday, MLK Day. If there's any particular horror movies that you want me to do like a spoiler review, a longer review on, please make some recommendations down below too. I love rewatching, I should say, horror movies I've already seen that you guys want me to discuss and pick apart about, and also maybe some new horror movies I haven't seen. Like I mentioned earlier about Martyrs. Never watched that, but have a lot of thoughts and feelings about that. If you want me to review it, I will talk to you all to death about it. But I'll catch you all on the next upload, and I appreciate you all for being so interested in listening to my thoughts and ideas on here. And I'm very passionate about this, so if you can give me a nice good like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff for my channel, it really helps me out. And again, I greatly appreciate that and would enjoy that so much for you all. But you all have a great rest of your January. I may do another posting on here within January of one of the new releases that we get. I'll keep you all updated. If you follow my socials on TikTok and Instagram, I don't know why I was struggling with that one, but all of it's the same name, Salem Queer, just one word for all of them too. So easy to find in there, and I keep updates of non-spoiler reviews, and they're like quick reviews on there on both of them. So if you want to watch horror film and not have anything be spoiled, I recommend following my platforms on those. And also too, that's where I make some list of like, here are new releases coming out this month and what I'm going to watch, and maybe you all can just tell me to what you want me to review for my YouTube channel on there. And also I'll keep you all updated of what I also select from the new release list too, of what I'm going to review and when I'm going to upload and all too. So there you go. Well, it's a Sunday night right now, so happy whatever day you're watching this, and I will catch you all later.